I thought I'd give animated some love this time. These two guys, this comedic duo, they are like, they're a testament, because it's rare in Transformers that a new character, completely new character, gets a ton of love and affection and screen time. Lugnut did that and became incredibly popular. And it's rare that an old character is reinvented and loved well. Blitzwing was reinvented. Instead of just being a power-hungry, just kind of Decepticon goon, he's a multiple personality, hilarious part of a comedy duo. So we're going to look at both of them today. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get an animated Blitzwing and Legacy anytime soon, because we already got Legacy Blitzwing. I don't think Hasbro wants to have 2 Blitzwings out on the market that soon, but Lugnut. We get a lot of jets, but we don't get many bomber aircraft. Like Stratosphere, he's a cargo aircraft. Like a bomber, though, obviously it's a B-17, B-24 inspired. It's obviously not a direct copy, but, it's animated. Nothing's realistic and animated. But a heavy bomber-style aircraft, it works for a Decepticon. The purple and the turquoise work together really well. He's a really good design. I love, again, as a kid, simply being able to do that adds a ton more play to the figure for kids. Move these up and down. You have your landing gear, which can deploy. And also, I like to get this out of the way, just for every animated figure, props to the designers for being able to replicate animated transformations and like the character designs. They got the animated vehicle modes and character designs to look like they did in the cartoon, in toy form. Even though in the cartoon things warp and mold and bend in ways that just aren't possible unless you made the whole thing out of clay and putty. So it's really well done. I wish that the hands detached, so you could have him firing them as missiles in robot mode, and you could have him, dropping bombs, because these are, I believe these are supposed to be bombs. The 2 main ones, because they have fins, and this is the engine. The engine's on top instead of the bottom. But what I like to do is I just move the arm, bend it down like that, and then from the other side, some angles it looks like the bomb's dropping. If you don't know they're supposed to be hands, it probably looks better. I just put him to the side for now, because what we're going to focus on now is Blitzwing. It doesn't look like a jet, but it also doesn't look like a tank with the wings on it. At least to me. It looks like a hybrid, futuristic military vehicle that flies and can roll on the ground. Otherwise, the design, it cleans up pretty well. I mean, this is not his main alternate mode. It's also the nose cone's very loose. But for what it is, it's really good. In the show and animated, it was also a brick with wings. And it looks just like the animated design from that perspective. And again, obviously, these two, they look good together, especially with Megatron, which I'll do him later, but I'll bring these guys in. His guns are at the back. They don't have any space to peg in underneath his wings like most jet formers do, but he has his fire blast effects basically for the thrusters, and you can also just obviously fire them to remove them. That might clean it up depending on what look you want to go for. Now we're going to stay with Blitzwing for transformation, because Lugnut only has 2 modes. Blitzwing, as we know, has 3. First off, let me highlight this. The nose cone, the tip of the nose cone folds in underneath the rest of the nose cone. Why this never is done with any of the Seeker molds, I don't know, but they just proved that they can do it. They proved they can do it in 2009. But for some reason, even in Earthrise Starscream, he just has a a thing hanging off his back, which isn't bad or ugly that much, but still, it's like, why? You've proven that you can do better than that, so why limit yourself? Anyway, fold down these. These come off a lot. You flip the nose cone in, flip the head back up, split most of this, and move the wings out of the way first. Okay, so you bring this together while this is up. And it does not like to hold together, but what will hold it together in place is that connection there. This comes together, and that folds down. These come up. And that's a tank! It's not a real... There is no way that I could go into how unrealistic this tank is. So I'm not even gonna bother, but it looks like it's animated. You know, there are some proportional liberties taken with the cartoon design, but the main thing is how it just compresses together into a brick, you know. It has all these, the nose cone and the wings and everything folded out, and it, you know, this was over here, it was longer and bigger, but it just it mass shifts really well, and all that, you know, and you can definitely see when it transforms to robot mode, there's a lot inside here that just gets tucked and hidden away and folds and compresses, which means that the transformation's fiddly because you have to have everything lined up just right, but otherwise it's a treat. The end result is a treat, because like it's a Voyager, but the vehicle mode is like, you know, it's basically the size of a deluxe. It takes about the same footprint. It's a bit taller, but you know, Lugnut, for example, he's a Voyager. That's a lot smaller, you know, in terms of like length and width. So it is really impressive, and I like it. You can put the fire effects parts basically on, and you can fire them off. The turret rotates. The guns cannot go up and down. Nothing go up and down. I'm not going to talk about the running gear, because if I talk about the running gear, I'm not going to stop talking about the running gear. But just say it's unrealistic. It's as unrealistic as you could possibly get for a tank's running gear. But it does have a driver's vision port, which is really cool. It looks kind of like an angry evil eye, but it's realistic looking. For most Blitzwings, the wings fold away under the legs or behind the back, and they're just hidden in the robot. With this, the wings become part of the tank mode. They're used. And that's, I don't know if that's ever done before. So props to this guy, really. Now, let's take the Blitzwing to robot mode transformation. So you start unfolding and unpicking things. You lift the wings up, you fold the wings out to get them out of the way, you unfold this. Really, if you just go into Blitzwing's robot mode transformation with the idea of I'm just gonna unfold and stretch everything out as much as possible, then you're pretty much on the right track. You're going to end up where you should. Bring that back. Bring that back. This will come up and peg in there. And depending on how you want the cannons to look, you can either have the cannons like that on the back, or you can unpeg it or rotate it around. It'll let me. Then fold the cannons up like that, and have them looking like that, which I prefer, because it looks more like the show. They can't fold over his shoulders, which would be really cool, but they still look good. And you talk about mass shifting, something that small becomes something that big. That's cool too. Now, as near as I can tell, all this is for is that they want to get this detail, this purple thing sticking out of his arm. And when you compress him up into vehicle modes, something has to lay against his arms. So, this is spring-loaded, so his arms can be compressed down, you know. And it doesn't get in the way of anything. It helps him mass shift. Blitzwing, there's not a lot to talk about. His wings, when you pose him, his wings they'll just flop back and forth. So you've got to have them pretty much, you know, readjusted once you're done posing him. But he has standard posing. He doesn't have any ankle tilt, but he has an ankle pivot up and down pretty far. He's got, you know, all in and out, almost full splits. Almost. You can, you know, for transformation, you can bend his knee literally all the way. You can hyperextend the knee. And he has double jointed elbows, no stoppers, so you can make it look like that. And the hands can fold in and out for whatever that does for your purposes. And there's a wheel in the back that you rotate to rotate his head. You're supposed to, at least, if you have fingernails. He has the more, the most G1 Blitzwing looking face with the visor. You know, his angry scowl. And the best character in the entire show, the crazy Blitzwing. Like, that was so fun. He was such a funny character. Now, let's move him away. Focus on Lugnut. So, for Lugnut, the first part is major parts forming. Which is nice that he has a weapon they can hold, but it's necessary for transformation, and if you lose the weapon, you're stuck with a not good looking aircraft. There's downsides and upsides. So you just fold the wings up, bring down the arms, the legs are cool, which you fold up the landing gear. Then you open these hatches, bring down the legs, this assembly, flip the legs out, flip the legs out, and then you just rotate this all around and peg that down. Now, there's an automorph in this guy. You fold the head, you fold this thing down, flip the head up, and those things would, back in the day before the joints got worn out, they would just automatically just, this and that would happen as just one automatic fluid motion. And that looks so cool. It fills out the chest, it makes it look more cartoon accurate. And it's just so satisfying to do. Like, that's automorph done right. It doesn't hinder the figure in any way. The hands compose. They are built on the sliders, so you don't need to get your fingernails in there and pull it apart. You just pull the slider, and that opens the hand, and you can, you know, have him grab things. And just what happens, the hands are 5mm, so you can have him blasting Autobot. Now his weapon, his staff, you just fold it up like that, you fold it out, then, kind of like the mini-con system, there's a little peg in there, which is pushed on by a post inside his hand, right there. So you plug this on, and as you plug it on, first off, his hand, you know, just because of the force of the thing, will close around it, so it looks like he's holding it. And then you slam this on the ground, that little, this is a spring-loaded thing right there, you know. And then, that happens, and it's his staff, which is used in one whole episode. But that's cool, and it reveals nice straps. And that looks like a, you know, there's no other peg, so he can't grab it, you know, like a big hammer. He can't dual-wield it, or hold it with both hands. But it's still a very impressive-looking weapon. As for articulation, though, where it suffers, as I said, he really can't hold his staff, you know, in both hands because he doesn't have wrist rotation, basically. He has full range here, out pretty much as full range you need, and he has bicep rotation, but he really needed wrist rotation as well because of how big and bulky these are, and how sometimes you need them to move different angles. But I can forgive that. Well, I can forgive all of it, but I can understand that, you know. The legs, there's no ankle pivot or tilt, obviously. The feet, full for transformation, but there's not really much you can use with that. Legs can go forward about that far before you start moving it outward. Move back. About that far. They can move out all the way, as you saw. Pretty much all the way. Yeah, all the way. The problem is his knees. As you see, he's kind of pit fiddly. Nothing, in neither of these figures, things don't tab in that well. But that's just age. You can get the knee to about right there, and that looks like a normal knee bend. But the pivot is like here, instead of up here, or in the middle. So if you bend it more, it just starts, transforming, and it looks less and less like an actual knee bend. So posing him isn't the easiest. Also, you can't get the expressiveness he had in the show. There's enough room. There's a seam there. The head is a separate part to the little flipping panel flap, but you still can't rotate the head at all. And that mouth, the way it's molded, is separate. It's not a separate piece, but the way it's molded, it looks like it should have been like a little button, spring-loaded button that makes his mouth open and close, kind of like a Leo breaker. That would have been really neat. Because in the place of that, he has light piping. Yeah, strike there. The light piping is atrocious, and his eyes don't light up at all. I think there's even a mention on the wiki that his light piping in particular is just very bad. There's this hanging off the back, which doesn't bother me that much. The one pose he can get into, well, he can get into two more iconic ones. He can do the one where he's, in the opening, holding up that bus, and he can kneel before Lord Megatron, his great and glorious leader. I love both these guys' personalities and the way they played off each other. They were just really good characters all around, and the figures are really good too. Again, if you want any of these, transforming them, that's the funnest part of owning these figures. It's not transforming them and looking at them. That they look dynamic and good as it is. You don't really need to pose them. The robot modes look good. The vehicle modes look good. They're great characters. If you want to represent them in toy form, that's great. The only difficulties with them I have really is articulation and just, the age. Things that pop off and break. But articulation with older figures is just, that's part of the thing you accept. There's some certain articulation you just don't abide them leaving out, depending on what era the figure comes from. But there's some you just accept. Well, that wasn't standard. Like if Lugnut could only move his arms, back and forth, and didn't have this or rotation, I'd say that's a miss. But, if he didn't even have a knee bend at all, that would be a miss too. But considering that he has, enough to check all the boxes, I still can't call any of them bad figures. But just figures with, their products, their time, you accept that. So there's that, I guess.